Good evening, everyone. Call for order today, July 25th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Call for order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Supervisor Aliaga.
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Treasurer Brown.
Here.
Trustee Morocco.
Here.
Trustee Nalamoku.
Here.
Trustee Stoyan.
Here.
And Trustee Ritchie is absent this evening. We have a quorum.
Great. I need a motion to approve our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item 5 from the consent agenda.
No, yeah. We approving the agenda first.
Under consent.
Under consent. We just want to
So
consent.
when we get to consent?
Yes,
My
yes,
bad.
yes. Okay, so you make a motion.
That's what I thought
I
you
was
said
thinking
that.
the
All
same.
right.
Okay,
I'll make
so-
a motion to approve the agenda
The
as
agenda.
presented.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Okay. Board, public announcements. Board members or individuals in the audience may make a statement containing information about a recent upcoming event. Terry, any announcement, anything, anyone?
I'd like to just make
Trustee
an
Morocco?
announcement. Yesterday, we had volunteer day at the Bailey House to help get the house ready for the return of the students in September. We had a great turnout. Chief Pache and some of his firemen came, and some local contractors and residents. And the next one's going to be August 17th from 8 to 4 p.m. if anybody's interested in coming out and giving us a hand.
Sure. You guys having any other event or something?
We're having an event in September, a
September.
fundraiser,
Okay.
the 25th, or 23rd, I'm sorry, but I'll get that information out in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone in the public? Anyone? Everyone online? Would you like to? Okay. Moving on. Public comments. Anyone that would like to address to the board? Anyone online? Okay. We don't have a public hearing today. We don't have presentations and reports. Okay, now we're going to consent agenda. All right.
Is this-
Hold on, I have to describe first and then, okay? Let me describe first. So yes, this is a consent agenda. Request to approve the Board of Trustees regular closed session meeting minutes of July 11, 2023. Request to approve the July 18, 2023 check run, including the ACH, $866,644, and ratify the July 7, 2023 payroll of $391,559.29. Request to approve the 2023 budget amendment number 26, budgeting for the bond prepayment and invoicing of the city of the village for the portion. And number 4, request to approve the Information Technology Oversight Committee, ITOC, amending bylaws. And 5, request to approve the traffic control device contact between RCOC and Independence Township. And number 6, request to approve Verde Lodge rental with alcohol on August 5th, 2023. Now, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Or we remove or,
I'd like to make a motion to remove item number 5, so there can be a discussion on item number 5 and approve the rest of the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, so we're gonna move item number 5 to area K.
area K, yes.
Yes, okay. I'll support.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We remove number 5 for,
So now we need a motion to amend, to approve the agenda as amended.
yes.
So I've made that motion.
Support.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now that's in the
Now we're in
business.
letter K, yeah?
Letter K, okay. So now we can talk about this.
Mhm.
All right, Sam, what?
Okay, so the request to approve traffic control device contract between RCOC and Independence Township. I just had some questions. I got some great information from Brian Ottman today about it. And I just, for clarity, I'm just not sure how the contract works, so we're authorizing this resolution with the county. What happens next? Like, does this include the road improvements or just the traffic light? And then do we go out for bid for the road improvements? And is the timing of us doing this as a standalone, is that beneficial compared to timing it when when they're doing the improvements across the road? And there's just, Brian, there's just some, I know that we're not paying $500,000 for the traffic light. That also includes the road improvements. Just explain what this tonight is specifically addressing, if you would, please.
Yeah, so this is the first step in the traffic improvements. So what they require this contract on maintenance, and it roughly runs about, they estimate $3,000 a year. Now, obviously, being new, it's probably not going to be necessary for the first few years, but before we can do road improvements and anything after that, safety path adjustments, we've already done a number of steps. We've already done preliminary engineering, drawn plans, gotten them approved by the road commission. We've worked with DTE on utility issues that are up there at the intersection. So we have a plan, but before we can really go any further with the road commission, we need this agreement in place. And this is an agreement that's very similar to what we did at Fleming's Lake and Sashabaw when we installed a light there, and other improvements that we've done. So after this, then we can actually go towards bidding out the project and going forward with the actual construction. So this is really just the first step.
Right, and if I may, so with the bidding, do we want to do it this fall like it's proposed, or should we wait till they do it across the street so that we're in conjunction of getting the light put up? Or is it, cheaper to do it that way using the same contractor opposed to us doing it as a standalone?
There are a number of advantages to doing it in partnership with the contractor across the street. That's only one time you're going to close, do traffic control. The pricing is better. The contractor across the street will have already been bid by that, the company who's doing it, Pulte Homes. So there are a number of advantages. We can go on and on and on. That's a discussion, I think, for the board at a later date. But yeah, I would agree that sole sourcing is the term. I
Okay.
think that's a better route than bidding it. But, that's up to the board to decide ultimately.
And I just wasn't sure of what trigger we were pulling. Like, are we, because I know they were proposing to do this side of the road this fall. So are we, getting that going by doing this?
Yeah.
Or can we give them a commitment that we want to do it, but wait till we go in conjunction with the one across the road? Or should we wait till they're ready to, that, I'm just not sure the best procedure.
Well, ideally is we get this lined up, the maintenance agreement, then I think the road commission is comfortable with us, issuing us a formal permit that we can actually move forward, and then it's up to us on timing with that permit.
Okay, so we could get to that point of permitting, but hold off on committing to doing it on their schedule this fall if they're not ready across the street without penalty?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So this is that's gonna consist of the right turn lane also becomes a straight through lane, lining up with the development across the street, then adding a left turn lane.
Correct.
Right here in front of, it starts the taper right here in front of the building.
Yeah, there'll be a widening and improvements to the intersection to make it basically line up, mirror what is across the street.
Okay, and the township is covering this, and then being reimbursed by the CIA in order to cover the expenses of our portion of the road improvement. And then across the street's responsible for their side of the road and everything from here to Sashabaw.
Yep.
As deemed,
Yeah,
And
there's.
this might be a little off topic, but if the road commission studies say, do we already know what the improvements would be for the volume of traffic projected from across the street?
Yes, that was all part of the PUD
PUD,
agreement
okay.
and development agreements that, that's what they're going to do across the street now. It was split into 2 phases. So they've already done the first phase, which was, down to Walters. The second phase is going towards Sashabaw, and then the road across, continuing Walden Center Drive to north.
Okay.
So that's part of that.
And they're fully committed and the costs are all going to the development
Oh.
on that part of it?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
they pay for that, all of it.
Okay.
All the road improvements.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Now we need to make a motion to approve it, right?
If somebody so moves, yes.
I'll make a
Yeah.
motion to request to approve the traffic control device contract between RCOC and the Independence Township.
Motion has made. Somebody-
Support.
Support, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Good. All right. We're moving to regular business. And we have the first request to adopt the resolution 2023-014 for the Grand Class C no-profit continuing care retirement center. This is for Monarch Grove Senior Living, and I think somebody for the attorney, would you like to come and speak, please, to the podium?
Good evening, Supervisor Aliaga, Patrick Howe. On behalf of the Monarch Senior Living, I have with me Adam Snyder, Vice President of Operations with BEZTAC, the operator of the facility. I appreciate you having us here tonight. As you indicated on the agenda, we're here requesting local approval of a new liquor license for the facility. It's a modern amenity for senior living facilities across the country. Our state created this type of license a number of years ago to allow alcohol to be served to residents and guests only. This does not impact your quota. You have 2 licenses in your quota. This does not impact that in any way. This license stays with the building. If the business is sold, it could be acquired by a new owner-operator with your approval, but it cannot be used anywhere else in the township. So that's the purpose of the request tonight. I'll turn it over to Mr. Snyder quickly just to talk a little bit more about the operations and answer any questions you have.
Sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good evening.
Aye.
So we would be offering this to our residents and to their guests only. Our typical hours are usually 4 to 8 p.m. We have Sunday brunches, special events, those types of things. But it would be just available to our residents. Our other communities that we operate in the Michigan area all have liquor licenses as well, so it's something that we're accustomed to operating with and working within the constraints of.
Okay.
I did have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me how full your capacity is?
Yeah, right now we're at about 52% occupied.
Okay. So do you anticipate this will help
Yes,
the growth?
yeah, we
or-
would be hoping that it would continue to help our leasing efforts into continuing to fill up the community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone?
I did have a follow-up, I'm sorry. I just want to make a comment that we did receive the fee for the application, and we did get a signed contract as well from them. And the township has already met all of its inspections. When the packet first went out, that was still underway, but the township has undergone all of the inspections and have given approval. So I just wanted to give that
Okay.
follow-up.
The sheriff's
Okay.
department replied that they don't do the inspection anymore? Is that
Correct.
still pending?
It's not pending
Okay.
theirs, it's not under their purview anymore.
Okay.
They've been told by the higher-ups, so.
Okay. So the higher ups did the inspection then, or?
No,
Or they
the
just-
sheriff's
They're not
department does
required.
not inspect.
Okay. My question, I guess, is someone doing it in place of the sheriff's department's inspection?
We had, building and planning both inspect,
Right.
and our fire department, but not the sheriff's department, no.
Okay, so that one's just not gonna be
Yeah,
done? Okay.
yeah, going forward, so they won't do that anymore going forward.
Okay.
I just had a quick question about is it employees that handle the liquor, or is there a different person, a different staff that's just related to the liquor on site? Or, how does it work?
Yeah, it would be our employees that would serve, but we would still fall within the constraints of a liquor license that you have to be a legal age to serve the alcohol. So it's typically 21 in the state of Michigan.
Can you walk the grounds with open liquor?
No, we would have everything be within the constraints of the community.
But you can take liquor outside to the patios and do things like that? It's not just in the dining room or in the bar area?
And we have a common area space where there is a pickleball court, a bocce court, and a patio area that they might be able to go out there with an alcoholic beverage, but it wouldn't be roaming down to the street or anything like that.
Right. And you have this at other facilities?
Correct.
And they haven't been getting too rowdy or anything at the other ones?
No.
They cut them off at 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, 4 to 8 is still 4 hours of drinking.
a majority of our residents, it's more of enjoying a glass
Right.
of wine or a beer
Right.
with dinner or a cocktail. It's not anything outside of that.
Great. It's a great facility. Looks great over there.
Yeah,
Mom,
thank
I've
you.
got some great news.
I'm good.
Any other question, board members? No? Anyone else? Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll move to adopt resolution number 2023-014, granting local approval for the non-public continuing care retirement center license to Clarkston Senior Living LLC for the Monarch Grove Senior Living Facility located at 7373 Sashabaw, Independence Township, and authorize the township clerk to execute same and return to the Michigan Liquor Commission. Approval is conditional upon the applicant entering into an agreement for conditions of local liquor license approval that is satisfactory to the township, and authorize the supervisor and clerk to execute the same.
Second.
Motion has made and second, a roll call.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown?
Yes,
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Stoyan?
Yes.
And Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have our Director of, DPW Director, Dave McKee.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, kind of rehashing something we already did back about a month and a half ago. So our drinking water state revolving fund project that we were doing, we had to get board approval. We had to do a thing called a notice of intent for bonds. We did that for the $5.185 million that we received for a grant, 100% loan forgiveness for this project. Kind of crazy thing happened at the last minute, and is that the state called and notified us and said, hey, you guys want some more money? I said, sure, why not? Honestly, we did. So to do that, we have to kind of backtrack and kind of redo the same things we do, because the Michigan Finance Authority, I believe it is, correct, Jeff, requires us to do another public notification. We have to follow the same rules that we did, and we kind of already did everything. So we have to go back to get this additional, it's approximately $230,000 more that we can get to add to this project. Before I go any farther, I just want to thank Clerk Newbeck for making this happen, really, because without her help, I was gone on vacation. This happened like literally the day I was leaving, and I was gone. And we have Jeff Arnoff here from Miller Canfield, and fortunately those two got together and they really made things happen. But Clerk Newbeck, I really have to thank you for this, because fast tracking this and getting things on the agenda, because we are under these time constraints. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful thing. So essentially what we're here tonight is just to get this this resolution to authorize issuance of water revenue bonds for this additional $230,000. Like I said, Jeff Aronoff is here from Miller Canfield. Jeff, do you need to add anything to this?
Yeah, I'm gonna add a couple of things.
He's going to add a few things. He is the expert on how this all works, so please, thank you, sir.
And I'll also echo Dave's sentiments. Clerk Newbeck, thanks so much for the hard work and quick work that
Appreciate
you
your
did.
help.
Well, it was, you made it easy.
It's too much.
So just, I want to add a little bit to Dave's comments. You may recall when we did the notice of intent a couple months ago, we said the next step was a bond authorizing resolution. The initial notice of intent was just to start the publication of a notice, start a referendum period, and then once that referendum period passes, then you actually authorize the bonds. We are doing that tonight too, in addition to issuing a supplemental notice of intent. So the resolution that you're adopting tonight is really just kind of a modification of a resolution you were going to have to adopt anyway, right? We were going to authorize the issuance of the bonds in the initial amount that was published in the first notice of intent. So what we're doing tonight is we're authorizing those bonds. We are ratifying the publication of the notice of intent, and then we're authorizing a little bit more in the way of bonds than we expected. So we're, in a way, we are redoing one step of the process because we have this extra money, but the authorization resolution that you're undertaking now is really a step you were going to need to take anyway. You're just adding a little bit more principal amount to it. And of course, we're talking about this as a bond issue and as a borrowing, but in reality, it's 100% principal forgiveness. That is to say, you finish the project and you're not going to have to pay any of it back, but the state requires that you still legally structure this and issue it as a bond. And it's sort of the difference between a grant and a forgivable loan, right? It ends up being a grant, but the grantor wants to make sure that you sort of hold up your end of the bargain before they convert it to a grant. That is what principal forgiveness is. It's something that's initially dressed up as a loan, and then it's fully forgiven and is effectively a grant. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have, but I wanted to clarify that we are taking a step you would be taking anyway. We've just added a little bit to it.
Okay. Any question from board members?
Nope, sounds good.
Question? Sounds good, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll move to adopt bond resolution number 2023-012, authorizing fiscal year 2023 drinking water state revolving capital improvement bonds, DWSRF project number 7696-01 as presented.
I'll support.
Okay, it's a roll call.
Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Nalamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Stoian?
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes.
And Clerk Newbeck, yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Carrie.
Gold star.
It's okay.
Okay, Dave, stay there.
I ain't going
Still,
anywhere.
yes.
Looking for more.
I'm glad Jeff was here to explain that. That's pretty complicated, but that was perfect. So the next item on the agenda is the next step, one of the steps that we have to do to follow along with our milestone schedule, and that is the tentative award of construction for the contract to install this. This is the final step, Mike. I have Mike Lufkin here from DLZ, our engineering firm, and I believe this is the final step that we need to do for the state's requirements to complete part 3 of the application that Jeff kind of referred to, the whole process of how we have to do this. So we did go out from competitive bids for this project. We posted it it soaked for about 30 days. 30 days, we have five bids that came in, and they're all really close. We had one that was really good. So actually it came in like almost $1 million less than the other 4, which is wonderful, which is really good, and it's legit. And it's from a legit company, Sam. Legit,
Okay.
very good. It's actually, it's Superior Excavating, who did our Pine Knob Trail water main. They just put that in. They're local, they're out of Auburn Hills, they do a great job. Mike's here that he can explain a little bit about the bidding process and maybe some more requirements that the state would require for that. Mike, can you just speak a couple words really quick?
Yeah.
And explain this.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll keep it brief, but as Dave mentioned, we took 5 bids on the construction of the water main projects for this DWSRF effort. Bids ranged from $3.349 million to $4.476. We discussed the bids with low bidder. They're comfortable with their bid. As Dave mentioned, it's a contractor that we're familiar with. They've done work recently in the township, and confident they can do a good job. They do have a MO of coming in with a lot of forces, getting the work done and getting out of the way. So confident they can do the work. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the bidding process or the process in general. The action we're looking for tonight is an approval of the resolution that's before you. And again, that has to go to the state for part 3 of the application. It's an intent resolution subject to successful financing through the SRF program. So, anybody have any questions for me? I'd be happy to answer them.
Just a quick one. What were they attributing the significantly lower bid, to?
Yeah,
Why
so-
they were so competitive?
So I talked to the contractor specifically about that with concerns, because we don't want to go into a relationship with a contractor that's out for extras, right? They took their biggest risk on dewatering. That's kind of where they took their risk. We're gonna find out. We certainly gave them enough information, for their bid. We took, I can't remember, it was like almost 30 soil borings throughout the project area to give them an idea of where groundwater table is. Outside of that, I talked to them before the project came out for bid. I knew they were hungry for work. They were gonna be aggressive on this, so they were. And we've worked with them quite a bit and always been happy with their work, so.
Are you the inspecting company of the work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you guys are in the field?
Correct.
Making sure that
Yep.
stuff's laying on something solid?
On your behalf, correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, no, anyone else? Okay.
Dave, you good with it?
Very much so. Like Mike said, Superior Excavating is the one that, they just finished up the job and they did approximately 2,000 feet, approximately 2,000 feet of water main on Pine Knob Trail from Clintonville Road all the way up to Mary Sue with service taps, exact same thing, and they were great neighbors, no complaint. Any complaints that we did receive, I would be absolutely clear on this. I have maybe like 3 or 4. They immediately addressed them from the neighbors, and they were in and out. They did a great job. They did a really good job.
From where to where is this going?
This project
Yeah.
here, the main piece, the biggest piece I would say was on Parview from
Okay.
Andersonville Road to Dixie. There's also a large section that is north of Walden, essentially across the street from the junior high school on Cherry Lawn. There's just that little section on Park Lake Drive, all through the back in there. There's no water main at all in any of those streets right now. So this is essentially this giant project to put all this water main in, is to get more water up this way from our Bay Court pumping station. There'll be a new line that comes out of Bay Court through the park. Talked with Parks and Rec, and DPW's gonna do a little improvement for them because we're gonna disturb a little bit of the property right there, but we're not gonna, we're gonna make it look nice. Promised.
Okay. Anyone else? All right.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2023-013 for tentative award of construction contract for drinking water system improvements, DWSRF project 7696-01, in the amount of $3,349,027.50 from Superior Excavating, Inc. of Auburn Hills, Michigan, contingent upon successful financial arrangements with DWSRF program as presented.
Or
Okay, motion has made and seconded. It's roll call.
Yes. Trustee Morocco?
yes,
Trustee Naomothu?
Yes.
Trustee Stoyan?
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes, and Treasurer Brown.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay. Rick Jagger.
Good evening, everyone.
Aye.
This is a pretty simple one here. Good news, actually. I actually had a meeting with the Senior Community Center supervisor back on July 12th. She actually brought to my attention that senior travel is kind of booming, and we're already pushing our budgeted numbers, so it's kind of a good thing. So we're actually kind of looking at it, and currently they've already surpassed their revenue budget of $169,000 by $15,000 at this point in time. And obviously expenses go with that, so we're going to start tapping into those as we start paying for some of these travel events. But basically what it comes down to is they maintain roughly a 12% margin for trips. That's spread out between their overnight trips and day trips. So what we did was we actually, there was a sheet that you guys should have had handed to you, or was in your packet, and it kind of shows what the projections are, and they're almost double what we budgeted. So what we're looking at here is moving projection, or revenues closer to $340,000, and with expenses coming in around 300. It still maintains that 12% margin. And the good thing about that is it generates another $20,000, which means that we can actually reduce the amount of money that's coming in from the general fund. So we can reduce that transfer by the same $20,000. So that's basically what we're looking at here. It's a good thing that the seniors are moving around and doing some stuff. I guess this is basically has to do with COVID and being cooped up, and everyone's just starting to get out and starting to feel the ropes, I guess, a little bit. But that's it. That's what we're looking to do with budget amendment number 27.
Okay, any questions, board members? No? Anyone from the audience? All right, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2023 budget amendment number 27 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we have to move for a closed session at 6:31 PM.
We don't have a closed
Oh,
session.
no, we have to,
Well,
oh,
this
sorry.
is budget
Oh,
session.
budget session, sorry,
That's
budget
right.
session, yes, that's right, sorry. I have it here. That's why I had confused on the
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all together, study,
Yeah.
budget, and
budget
closed.
session, yeah, okay.
All right, let me know when you are ready. We can begin. You all set?
Yeah,
Okay. Basically what this is, it's obviously we're getting into the 2024 budget season. And obviously we budget 3 years, so we got 24, 25, and 26 that we're gonna be budgeting for this time. And the board will actually approve the 24 budget. 25 and 26 are just kind of out there to kind of see a little bit into the future as to how we're budgeting and where the results are taking us at this point. So what I've got here in front of you is just, it's more information and some things as to what we're actually putting into the budgets. Obviously, you know, we're still working through them. Some of these things are fairly concrete, but they could possibly change from now to when they're actually presented to the board later on this year. So just to start out here, budget assumptions and changes. From a medical standpoint, the township board has actually adopted state caps. The state actually publishes insurance caps out there, and for basically a single, a couple, and a family. And the board has elected to basically run with those caps. And what that actually means is that's the maximum amount that we can pay for anybody's insurance policy. Anything over that amount is basically the responsibility of the employee. So basically, in 2024, they came up with the actual numbers already. There was a 4.1% increase in the state caps. And then obviously, I have to project out for 25 and 26. I typically don't like to use much less than 5%, and that just kind of keeps us safe from a budgeting standpoint. So I am going to use 5% for 25 and 26. I did give you a little bit of a history here, so you can kind of see what the past 5 or 6 years there have been. And actually, I'm sorry, they're on my sheet here. Sorry. But I mean, just to give you some examples here, it's 1.3% in 23, 3.7 in 22, 3.3 in 21. There was 2% in 20, 1.9 in 19, and 3.4 in 18. So all of those are relatively less than 5%. But I still am not real comfortable going down into those levels because you just never know when they're going to go from like the 1.3 in 23 to 4.1 in 24. I mean, you just don't know. So going with the 5%, I think, is a good, safe number to go with.
Question?
Sure.
Treasurer Brown?
This relates to the state's caps. It seems over time that their increases are woefully shy of the rates of inflation and our increase in health insurance.
I don't disagree.
And the impact of that for the board to think about is that every year our employees lose benefit. And they've just been going backwards for I don't know, a decade. And is there anything from the state, does anyone know if there's anything from the state that indicates they're gonna change how they do that?
I haven't heard anything, but that doesn't mean there isn't something in the works.
So
I have not heard anything.
All right, so it may be something that the board wants to look at in the future about how operating within the hard cap works. And maybe it's something we can have on a meeting to talk about in more depth with our health insurers and all that, so.
Okay, sure.
That's all, thank you.
Let's see here, moving on, based on some information I was able to get from our HR director, looks like life insurance is going to go up approximately 5% and 7.5% for short-term and long-term disability. So I'm going to be using those numbers, and then 10% increase on dental and optical. From a wage standpoint, I really haven't been given any other direction, so I'm pretty much falling back to the IWA contract at this point for everybody, except for fire, because they have their own contract. And basically what that calls for, as far as wages go, there's a 4% increase coming for '24, 3% in '25, and 2% in '26. And those are the percentages I applied to everybody. From a growth standpoint, I did talk to and reached out to our building director, and we've been using roughly 75 new homes a year, and he felt fairly comfortable with that number. Obviously, that's spread out between various subdivisions and that, which we still probably have to fine tune that a little bit. But he was still pretty comfortable with the 75 new homes, so we're going to use that for projecting, you know, permits and capital connection fees and stuff like that when we get into the water and sewer budgets. Okay. From an expenditure standpoint, despite the rising costs, we keep continuing to look for ways to decrease expenses, scrutinize current charges, see if there are any alternatives that make sense. Basically, all everyone's doing is they're aware of their budgets. They know who they buy from, so they're basically putting pressure on them as much as they possibly can to keep prices down. As far as presentation changes, I know we did come up with that new labor schedule. I'm going to stick with that because it is a good comparison to the prior year. And I'm not going to increase this number, but we're going to explain budget variances greater than $5,000. Okay. Moving on to the millage and Headley reduction. The good news is there is no Headley reduction in 2024. So the millage rates that were applied last year are going to be the exact same ones that are going to be applied next year. So basically, what does that mean? Okay, so overall increase of $1.3 million, and it's primarily based on growth for 2024. General fund is going up $140,000, no reduction for Headley. Fire is going up $504,000, again, no reduction for Headley. Police is going up $625,000, no reduction for Headley. And the safety path is going up $62,000 and no reduction for Headley. I handed you a sheet, yes.
Rick, can you explain the board why police has more than fire at this time?
Yeah, because the police millage just got renewed, and it got renewed. The millage was increased back up to the 2018 level. So that's why you're seeing it being a little bit more than what fire is at this point, because it's a bigger millage at this point now compared to what it was, and that difference there is also making it more than fire. So that's all it is. Really comes down to that.
Okay.
But I handed out a sheet, which I thought was kind of interesting to everybody. It's this one, it's the cumulative impact of Headley since fiscal 2016. Just to explain the schedule here, basically, that first column is what the millage rates were back in fiscal 15. The second column over, that's the current millage rates where we're at right now and what we're going to be applying for to the 2024 year. The difference is then multiplied by the current taxable value, which is that $2 billion figure you see down in the asterisk sentence there. So basically, for 2024, Headley has reduced our millage rates to the point where we're losing $1.15 million for just 2024, spread out between those four entities. So I just want to kind of, it's just an interesting schedule because people hear Headley and they don't really realize what it is. This is what it is. It's a loss of revenue. So this schedule just kind of points that out. And again, this is just for 1 year. Yes.
What, can you, I'm not familiar with Headley and what that
Yeah.
means, sorry.
Thank you.
I was waiting for
I
you
wish
to
I
ask.
had our
you know?
assessor here, because she could probably explain it a lot better than me. But it's a way to equalize millage rates, and it has to do with eliminating growth and keeping things basically the same despite the growth. And it's a factor that they apply that actually pulls your millage rate down, gives you less dollars. But again, those less dollars are supposed to be on that history of your taxes, your tax value property. I can't explain it any better than that. I mean,
So
I
does
just
the
know
money
it's a
go
pull
somewhere
down of
else?
the millage.
Does
I'm
the
sorry.
money we're losing, does it go, it stays
Yeah, it
with?
stays with the resident, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
resident's
it's gonna
paying less taxes for each millage because of whatever Headley is.
Yeah, it's good for them.
Okay.
Bad for the township, though.
Well, for operating
Yes,
expenses, for
exactly.
sure.
And that's
Okay.
all. It just kind of shows you what the impact of Headley is, just in 1 year.
What entity controls that part?
Geez, that's a state. Yeah,
It's
that's
the
all
state that does it? Okay, just,
Headley's actually a constitutional.
It is. Yeah.
So, but the state legislature sets the rate and it's reduced every year. And because interest and so forth, there's no reduction this year. This is the first time, Rick, in.
It's been a long time, yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time. But
so that's good. Better.
It's better for all.
Better than going down more.
Yes, it is. Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. Moving on to fund overviews, starting with the general fund. The general fund has a pretty healthy fund balance of $11.3 million. We did have a $355,000 surplus in 2022, so that added to that. We do have to take out $629,000, and that's because several years ago, one of the GASB rulings forced us to basically take all of the developer escrow accounts and roll them into the operating statements. And basically, that number has come down to about $629,000 that is sitting within our fund balance. That basically is developers' funds. We can't touch those.
Right.
Okay? In addition, and this number is not part of the 11.3, but the cemetery fund balance adds another $569,000. But that money, again, is limited to cemetery use only. Okay? But it is considered part of the general fund, and when you actually see consolidated statements, those numbers would be considered, put together. Okay? Fund balance is at about 130% of annual expenditures. So what that basically means is if, for some reason, we had a catastrophic event, there is no more money coming in, the township can run for about a year and a third before it runs out of money, is basically what that means.
No tax revenue at all.
No tax rate.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. 1 year, that's good.
Is that the regulate about where we want it, the percent we want to be at? Is there a target that's comfortable?
Well, we've always talked about the 20% rule, and so we try to keep roughly 20%, and then anything over above that is basically we can use for projects and whatever have you. So.
And is that money that we're using to fund things to get reimbursed? Like, would that be the money where the money comes from, like to fund something the CIA wants to do, and then we're going to recoup it over
It
time?
just comes out of fund balance is all it comes out of.
That's where that comes
Yep,
out of?
Comes out of fund
Okay.
balance, absolutely. Yep, and then it goes right back in when they reimburse it.
Right, okay.
Okay. Let's see here. We're continuing to fund the document management project. We're upgrading the network and township security. That's kind of an ongoing thing, and we might have a possible use of ARPA funds there for some of the security issues. There is going to be a slight decrease to cable franchise fees. Again, that's due to the 5G rollout, and we're still not really seeing the big drops that we were basically led to believe were going to happen. Has it come down? Sure, but it hasn't come down to 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 like we were all kind of freaking out would happen. It's only come down a few $1,000s every year. So it's hanging around that 600,000, just a little bit better for the general fund. Obviously, if that does by chance go away at some point in the future, that's a big hole to fill, that $600,000, okay? So just making you aware of that. We have the Walden Road construction project, which is beginning this year and should finish next year. That's only costing the township about $427,000 compared to the $1.2 million that we were expecting to spend for that. Okay?
What's that specifically, the project you're referring to?
That is the paving of Walden Road from Clintonville to Baldwin.
Oh,
Okay,
that-
just up to our township line.
contribution
is what we're
our
responsible
contribution
for,
for
and they're
that?
responsible
Okay.
for the other half.
Okay.
Okay. Proposed millage rate for 23-24 is the .9444 for the general fund. Moving on to fire. Fire has a fund balance of $4.2 million. They had a $419,000 surplus in 2022. Their fund balance is at 64% of expenditures. So if anything happens and they're cut off, they can only run about 2/3 of a year, give or take. Their CIP fund balance at $3.1 million. That also experienced a $312,000 surplus in '22. They're going to continue with their established capital plan. The big item here that's a big change is they're going to begin annual contribution to the pension plan liability. I was talking to the chief about this, and we wanted to establish something instead of these throw something here and throw something there, and let's just knock this thing out. So we decided on $300,000 a year for the next 20 years. So that's gonna be in the budget every year for the next 20 years until we pay that liability down.
And we're done. Okay.
Let's see here, the station number 1 remodel should finish up in '24. There's a car number 2 is scheduled to be replaced in '24. They have a new medic vehicle and a command vehicle using ARPA funds that are coming up. Actually, they're in process, really. The millage was renewed in 2020 and expires at the end of 2024. And the millage rate for 23-24 is 3.3893. On the police side, their fund balance is $2.2 million. They had an $83,000 surplus in 2022. Their fund balance is at 35% of annual expenditures. So again, they can only run about a third of the year if everything just stops. They're looking to expand their office area within the next couple of years. Millage was renewed in '22 and expires at the end of '25. And their proposed millage rate for 23-24 is 2.8678. Parks and Rec. Primarily the big thing here is their capital projects. We're currently planning to add $250,000, and that's over the normal $200,000 that we basically supplied to the general CIP fund in 24-25, and then we're putting another $50,000 in for 26. And that's all to support new projects like the Clintonwood Concourse, and ball field backstops and fencing. We have Sashaball Plains bathroom replacement and new pavilion, Deer Lake Beach ramp replacement, Bay Court office repairs, Clintonwood walking trails / concrete sidewalk, and various mowers that they're looking to purchase as well. We will continue to add dollars to the general CIP fund as additional needs are identified. Moving on to Safety Path. Fund balance of $2.5 million. They had a $471 million surplus in 2022. I do have a crazy number out here for their fund balance. It actually represents 986% of annual expenditures, but this is a goofy fund. I mean, it goes up and down, and because we save money for a project, then all of a sudden we use the money for that project and it drops back down again. So it just depends on when you're looking, because that percent could actually drop down to 20%. Just depends on where you're at in the whole process with them. They continue to build paths. We have 4 of them here planned for '24. We have the Walden Road Safety Path, and that's a widening of the existing path as a complement to the SRTS, which is the Safe Routes to School program. If the project moved forward, and I was basically communicating with Mr. McKee earlier today, and he says that project has been resurrected. The state's actually going to throw more money at it. So it looks like this project is now a go again. We have Fleming's Lake Road, the Firefox sub is planned. We have Clarkson Road between Wingate and Sashabaw, and Sashabaw Road between Independence, Oaks, and Oak Hill. All of those are planned for 2024 at this point. We've been throwing more money at maintenance lately, and we're going to continue to do it. We actually bumped up to $150,000 this year, 23, from $100,000. We're going to keep it at that $150,000 level for several years now, because we have boardwalk issues, or potential boardwalk issues, and they are not cheap to fix. Plus we have path replacement sections of the path that are just heaving and cracking and whatever the issue is, but all that has to be replaced as well. And that's going to go on for several years to get all this stuff caught up. So we're going to continue to budget $150,000 annually for at least the next 3 or 4 years. Millage was renewed in 2018 and expires at the end of 2028. And the proposed millage rate for 23-24 is 0.4162. Moving on to sewer. And this is audit results, and I don't have much more to say about this, but based on the 22 audit, revenues are not covering expenditures at this point. Okay, this is for the year. We're continuing to pass sewage treatment increases to residents, and that's stopped the bleeding a little bit. We do have an unrestricted fund balance. Again, keep in mind, unrestricted fund balance is basically where your cash is. Yes, there are some receivables and some payables in there, but those are minor numbers, and they typically cancel each other out, and you're left with basically cash. So there's about $10.7 million there. We continue work on identified repairs to the sewer pipes for the pipeline HRC recommendations. The Parview Lift Station rehab is, I believe, scheduled for 2024. And then they were approved for the sewer revolving fund loan to refurbish the 3 can stations that have expected or exceeded their useful life. That project will start sometime this year, late this year, and finish in '24. Moving on to water. Again, based on audit results, revenues are covering expenditures in this fund. The unrestricted fund balance here is $6.6 million. They've also secured a DWSRF loan to address the PFAS issues at Clarkston Gardens with a main extension along Parview, which totals right around $5.4 million. And then we're actually adding in another 25% rate increase to address operational costs. That's also going to be built into the budget. And we'll get more into that when we actually present that budget.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
If you don't mind. Are we now in the black on the water because we raised the rate?
Well, we really haven't been in the red, so to speak. I mean, we're continuing to still operate, and we have capital fees. So that's a big thing that everyone needs to, and this is one of the present things I'm going to be presenting to you, is everyone needs to understand that capital fees are one-time fees. Yes, we have a lot of development going on, and yes, we have all this money coming in, but at some point in time, the township's going to get built up, and there won't be those fees any longer, and you're going to be left with just your rates. And that's what we really need to sit back and focus on. Where are rates leaving us? If everything else went away, where would rates be enough to cover our operational costs? Right now, the answer is no.
Right, well, that's where I was kind of going with this question, as I know we raised the rates this year. Are we going to continue to make those adjustments incrementally but smally so the residents don't freak out about it, but
Yes,
yet try to
exactly.
get us to a good place in the near future?
Absolutely. In fact, I still have some more analysis to do on this because it's about a year or so old the last time I looked at it. So I want to bring it up to date with the 22 actual information and just kind of relook at the numbers again. So that's something I'm going to be working on between now and when their budgets get presented back, like late October, November. And we'll have more, better information for you at
All
that
right,
point.
thank you.
Okay. Finance-related activity, basically it's all ARPA-related. We did get the second half of the estimated $3.8 million of American Rescue Act funding. Projects have been identified and they were approved by the board in 2022. Any excess funds that weren't spent were carried over into 23, and if some projects don't complete in 23, those funds will still be carried over into 24. Additional projects are being identified for unspent ARPA funds. We do have some pools of money that haven't been really identified for projects yet, and we've had some projects that were identified that have come in under budget. So we're kind of looking at these additional funds here, coming up with more projects, but that's still kind of fluid right now. We're trying to gather these projects and put a list together, and obviously we'll come back to the board for approval on those once we have the list completed. Okay. Last thing here is meeting times. We have 3 meetings basically scheduled to present the budgets. First one is it's September 19th, and that's going to be a myriad of different things. In fact, I also handed you a schedule like this, and this actually shows you the funds that are going to be presented on those particular days. So September 19th, we're going to be looking at fire and their construction in progress activity, looking at police, safety path and their plans for construction and capital projects, ITV, CIA, CDBG, North Sashabaw debt, and Walters Lake. All of those will be addressed on September 19th. Then on October 24th, this is the big one, this is the general fund and Parks and Rec, along with the general CIP as well. And then finally, November 7th will be water, sewer, their CIP, and then Sashabaw Drain also falls into that. Then next meeting after that, which would be November 21st, that would be the public hearing date, where I come up and just do a quick presentation, or it's about 40 or 50 slides I walk through, and just to kind of give a higher level review of the actual budget itself that you're going to be approving. And then the approval of the actual budget takes place December 5th as of right now, unless something changes. And then, yes, so you've got the timeline, so I think I've covered all of that. Is there anything else that we may have missed or that we need to talk about, that we need to consider as we're going through, the process of getting these budgets done and approved, narratives written and everything else?
We're good, right? Any questions? No?
Just a quick, is the ARPA tied in with the seniors and the parks and rec specifically, or can it be used for other?
It can be used for
other
pretty much
things?
anything township-wide. Yeah.
So the future projects you're identifying that could be ARPA-related projects, who's spearheading the project?
Pretty much all the directors.
each of
We
them
sit
have their
around and
own
we talk
thing?
about them and come up with a list, and we're trying to gather prices. That's what's holding things up right now, because we've got some security issues, upstairs and this building in general. And we're trying to get some, lock down some numbers as to what we actually need to do to secure it, make the employees a little bit safer. So we're still waiting for some numbers to come in before we can finalize that list. But yes, I mean, we can use it for a lot of different things.
But that'll come back to the board.
That will come back to the board once we have those projects identified. We'll actually give you a whole rundown. We'll say, here's what you originally approved, here's what happened to those funds. We had excess funds, we've now identified these projects. Do you want to move forward, or do you want to change something, or whatever? So we're still going to bring that forward to the board.
And each department has a wish list they put together, kind
For the
of?
most part, but, most of it's coming out of Parks and Rec, most of it's coming out of, sewer and water. Those are your big pieces, so to speak.
Yeah.
Are there other things? Sure there are. But they're all
I
small.
haven't asked for any of it for treasury.
No.
I mean, it's just like assessing, they don't really have any needs, not big capital needs, I'm just saying. And there's a department director there, so it's just like some do, some don't. But most of the draw is coming from Parks and Rec and DPW.
So if there's any projects that somebody thinks should be identified or talked about, it's best to just go to that director, that affects their department, and then see where they're at with that, or if it's already been identified or is on the radar.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank
Any
you.
suggestions, something?
Okay.
you
Yeah,
can-
we're
it's
considering
good.
everything, we're writing everything down. Anybody who's got an idea, and we're trying to put dollars to it, see where we're at, what dollars are available. I mean, at this point, with $11.3 million fund balance, the general fund could possibly even chip in another $1 million or something like that and get a lot of these little things done. I mean, we're not doing a whole lot more with that money, so it's just a thought. And I'm to basically take care of a lot of little things that may not be ARPA, but
Gotta get
still gonna be
done.
taken care of, instead of
Right.
dragging them out 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So, just a thought, and we can discuss that further as we get.
I just wanted,
Sure.
I kind of was a little bit of the lead on ARPA funds. I just want to point out that ARPA funding, there's federal guidelines on what you can and cannot use it for. So, I mean, it's a pretty broad brush, like Rick said, but there are some things you can't use.
Right.
I mean, it's very specific in the categories, so that's the other thing right there. So full transparency, so the board is aware of that, and the board members are aware that there's certain things you can't use.
Okay. Thank
So
you,
you're not
Dave.
getting a bonus.
No. Thank you, Dave.
Bonuses, I
Can't use
don't
it
think
for
are
bonus.
included. If there's no other questions, that would
No?
end the
Thank you.
presentation then.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, communications, features, agenda items and reports. I have a number one, Fire Department monthly report at April 2023, and number two, report of Oakland County Sheriff Department monthly report, June 2023. And three, minutes, Information Technology Oversight Committee, ITOC, June 2023. Any board members' comments?
I just want to ask a couple questions of the board itself. How are we doing on the branding, getting the branding done? Can you tell me where we're at with that?
Sure, we met with the company, the people that are gonna provide the services. We have a meeting with Lisa Christensen, myself, and some of the people from the township, and we look into that. We got some ideas, and it's kinda still working. It's just the beginning, it's just in the
But
beginning.
we have somebody
stage.
working on
Yeah,
it now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah, we've,
yeah, we do.
Okay, I
We-
didn't hear that we
Yeah,
locked
the
in
board-
on
Yeah, yeah,
somebody, so I
yeah.
just wanted
the
to
board
know.
approved that.
Yeah.
And then, just, the, competitive rates study that we were doing, is that still, ongoing?
Yes, actually, I talked to Jennifer and Spiegel, my deputy, and Kearney from clerk office, and they're working on it. Yes, they're still on, yes.
Okay, do we have a
We have a,
estimated time that we're gonna?
we're gonna have a time, they're coming here to meet with us a kickoff,
Kickoff.
yeah. So we're gonna meet with them
Oh,
very soon,
I saw it
yes.
on my calendar.
Yeah,
Oh, you did?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Just saw it, I saw it come in.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
excited to get some signs.
Yeah, no,
going
you-
and then get,
Yeah.
I
no,
know we
yeah.
have some positions open, so I think that's a tool that you guys, would be helpful if we had that. So I wanna make
Yeah.
sure we're not shortcutting ourselves on hiring people, you
Yeah.
know, so,
Yeah.
okay.
When is kickoff?
It's in our calendar, I think it's
31st,
the
Monday.
31st, Monday 31st.
Okay.
So you're just meeting with them then? Is that the plan to,
Yeah.
and are they gonna make their findings presentation, or we're not at that point?
We're not even there yet.
Okay, we're
This is
just
just an initial
together and what
kickoff
we're-
meeting and talk about what we're looking for
Okay.
and what we have, kind of
But that's
factual
on the
gathering.
books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, that's good. That's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Move
Any
to
other
adjourn?
questions? No? Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. All right, great.
Ooh, right at 7.
Yeah, we made it 7 PM. That was good.